everybody, and welcome to the FTGU Media Show, or From the Ground Up Media Show, whatever you want to call it, where we're having conversations with people in the industry of real estate and how they are going to help produce better content for themselves in order to connect with their audience. I have an incredible guest with me today. Her name is Nicole Shapiro. I hope I'm saying that correctly. She's actually a Toronto videographer / filmmaker. Nicole, thank you so much for being with me today.
Thank you, Laura, for having me. I'm excited. This is so professionally done. I love the intro.
So I got to let you know, I have nothing to do with this at all. You're actually, you're speaking with somebody who doesn't understand technology. I don't even own a camera myself. So, you and I probably actually don't have that much in common in that respect, but I have an incredible team who works with me. We have about 4 or 5 people on the team, some people who take photos, some people who are more so in the editing realm of things, and then some videographers. So they do all the work and I just kind of sit here and ask the questions. So I get the easy job for sure.
Love it. Love it.
Wanted to start off, Nicole, why don't you just tell our viewers and listeners a little bit about yourself, what it is you actually do, and how long you've been doing it?
Sure. So I'm born and raised in Toronto. I'm a little north of the city, but I travel downtown pretty often for a lot of my shoots. I actually started 3 years ago. I have a kinesiology degree, so I started in fitness and sport, and my plan was to become a strength and conditioning coach, and that quickly changed in 4th year. I was filming the men's basketball team, and I fell in love with filming. It became a hobby, and then the following summer after I graduated, I did an internship at a wedding company, and they kind of taught me everything that I know about DSLRs and filming under pressure and that kind of stuff during a wedding. But since then, it's basically just been self-taught with editing and filming. That's pretty much it. Right now, my focus is away from weddings because of, the last couple of years. I shifted my focus more onto online content series, so things like masterclasses and a lot of commercial work and music videos.
It's funny. I didn't think we would go down this realm of the conversation today, but obviously just hearing your story a little bit, it kind of reminds me of myself. I actually have a degree in nutrition. Yeah. And we always have these hopes and dreams when we're like 17, 18 years old and we're deciding what we want to go to school for. Kinesiology was actually one of the options. And then I very quickly decided, you know what, I don't think this isn't right for me. You kind of had that gut feeling. I ended up finishing the degree, but from then on, I was like, I know this isn't for me. I need something else. And I changed careers actually a number of times before I sort of settled in on real estate. And now, of course, I've opened up this other business venture, which has more to do with branding and creating content. So I guess, at the end of the day, quick tip for anyone who's watching is don't be so married to what you think you're going to do in life. Like take those opportunities and learn from them and sort of let life take you where it takes you, right?
Yeah, because those pivots become so important. I don't regret going to school at all. I made so many connections there, and I fell in love with sport at the same time. So those two ideas kind of got married. So even with you, for your marketing, I'm sure you can relate to any nutritionist who needs marketing, right? It sets you apart with the little personal thing that you have about yourself. That's not just, went to school for marketing, now I'm doing marketing, and it's all just streamlined where you have these little, unique things about you that people will want to work with you because of that reason. So, yeah.
That's so true. And, a lot of times people will think, if I have a gap in my resume or, I've made changes to my career path, that's actually a negative. And I always like to say, and this is kind of going to segue me into our next kind of conversation, is that try to take those things that people kind of generally view as a negative and flip that around and say, how can I make that a positive? And I think what you've done so interestingly is that you're a female, a very strong female doing what you're doing in a pretty male dominated space. I mean, all the people I work with and all the people who have put their hand up for wanting to work with us, they've all been men. I've been looking at your website and your Instagram page throughout the day, trying to get a little bit more information on who you are and what you do. And I've seen that you work with, you work with some male basketball players, and you're working in a space that I'm sure can be a little bit intimidating. I myself work with mostly men, and it can be a little bit overwhelming when they're speaking over you, or you feel like you're not being heard just because, maybe life has taught you along the way to be a little bit more pleasant or polite and let people finish speaking. But sometimes you're like, just shut up, let me get my word out. How do you kind of assert yourself to make your presence seen and known?
That's a great question. So I think because of my background, like in strength and conditioning, I was always around like guys, and especially with that industry and fitness, like I would be in the weight room training these guys who are like 6'2", 6'4", big football guys, big hockey guys, and I'm knowledgeable on what I do, so I'm training them and they have to respect me, right? So I always had to kind of, I don't know, it's definitely about like the aura. I don't want to say like your vibe, but it's like putting your foot down and I guess making sure that the boundaries are set right away before anything else, if that makes sense. So like if you're working in a team that is completely male dominated, like show up, be yourself. Like I don't see myself like being less feminine or like more masculine just to fit in, but I definitely see myself being a little bit more, like not outspoken, but I definitely don't shy away from like speaking up or like saying my opinion, because I know that it can get shut down really easily. And if I present myself saying like, hey, I'm good at what I do, I don't really care that I'm female and that I'm here, like I'm in this room for a reason, so like I can provide value however I need to, if that makes sense. So it's like, honestly, over the past couple of years, I haven't had a lot of negative experiences in terms of like being female in a male dominated industry. I've actually had more positive experiences because there are so many people looking for female creatives in specific niches that like they wouldn't want to work with a male just because of like comfort levels, because of like, if it's like a boudoir shoot. I've never done something like that, but the females that's like a female niche, right? It's things like that where it's actually sometimes a good thing to be a female in this industry. So
that's what I was saying. You're kind of using something that might be viewed as a bit of a negative or uncommon, and you're kind of flipping that around and saying like, I'm here and I'm going to work with people one way or the other. And in some respects, it's actually boding well for you. I think in the space where I am and that I help people try to produce content, particularly real estate agents, who are not necessarily people who are like, I want to be a superstar. I know you produce films and music videos and commercials where the people are certainly more artistic. They're a little bit more comfortable in front of a camera. I'm kind of working with people who are like, I don't even want to take a selfie photo. So, where do I get started with them? And it brings me kind of back to, I would say, 2019. A team and I went down to New York City to meet with Gary Vaynerchuk. I'm not sure if you know who that is.
Yes, I do.
Big media guy in the US who produces a ton of content. And he was kind of saying to us, like, look, people got to start getting comfortable with this, because in the next 10 years, people are going to be having videographers following them around. Are you starting to see that in the industry yourself? Like, are you getting asked to do that type of work where people are saying, I just kind of want you to vlog more of my day? Or is what you're still seeing very much like a specific kind of shoot?
Right now, I'm much more focused, I guess, on the commercial side. So it's less about like personal branding, and it's more like I have a product to sell. How can I make it relatable? Like that kind of a commercial brand. But I definitely see like a lot of people asking me. Actually, I'll take it back a step. I think it was probably 2 years ago. I met one of my like closest friends now, Anthony Nuska. He's a fantastic photographer. And I remember we were in Uber together, and I guess we like added each other on Instagram or something. And I was showing him a post, and on my personal branding stuff, I have a lot of like long captions, and I use it more of like a blog post, I guess. Like, and I remember him asking me like, is that like genuine? Like, do you actually like intentionally put yourself out there and share your story? And like I'm always on my Instagram stories talking like with my face, not just like posting portfolio work, which I find a lot of, like creatives do that. They just post their work and not a lot of their face. So I think like he was just confused. He was like, is this intentional? Like, are you doing this for the purpose of marketing? And I'm like, honestly, no, this is a genuine thing that I want to share. I want to like talk to the camera. And I find that when I go out to like, let's say creative events, a lot of people recognize me because they see my face and like, they'll say like, oh, are you N Shaps? And I'm like, yeah. And I feel bad because I don't recognize you. And then I realize, oh my God, you're that person that I already have been following and I look up to you, but I just never knew what you looked like. So the whole point of like that personal branding side, like following yourself, like, well, I guess in that way, like following yourself around, capturing what's going on in your life, it's a little bit of, you know, like opening yourself up on a personal level. Like there's not a lot of things that are private anymore in that respect. But yeah, I think to spin that question, there's lots of people that want to do that themselves, at least on the first step. And then the next step would for sure be like, how can I get someone to follow me around if your life is that interesting, I guess.
Well, that's so interesting that you say this, because someone who has your level of professionalism, and I'm sure your level of, you know, perfectionism in the work that you do, the fact that you're still willing to take some behind the scenes of yourself or speak directly to your phone, it, you know, I think where people get it a little bit twisted is that they think everything has to be a beautifully edited piece and they want everything to be airbrushed and perfect. But that's not necessarily the case. Like, here's somebody who has the ability to do all those things, because Lord knows I don't even know how to work half the things on my phone. So, you know, I really appreciate you saying that, because I think for the people who are watching and listening, they're going to say, okay, like a videographer posts natural selfie videos. She probably just takes her phone up like this and she's posting what she does. And here's the problem with agents, and they're notorious for this. All they want to do is post just listed and just sold, which is similar to what you were saying with people in your industry who only want to show the work they're doing. They don't want to show themselves doing the work. So I wonder what you would say. So for today, for example, we had a video shoot with a young lady, and it was her first time on camera, and she came all decked out, glam, done up, and her problem was like, look, this is great, but I can't be doing this every day. And I could tell that there was quite a bit of insecurity behind that. Do you have any tips and strategies for how you help people get more comfortable in front of the camera? Because she was very nervous, and I'm trying to pull it out of her. But quite honestly, I have those feelings too. So I'm curious to hear what you have to say on, like, you know, when you say action, do people freeze up, and then what do you do to kind of get them out of that?
Okay, this is a great question. I think maybe like 3 or 4 days ago, I had purchased a bunch of cute online clothing, and I went to my friend and we were like, let's go take photos outside. And as soon as I got in front of the camera, me getting in front of the camera, I was like, what do I do? Why am I frozen? This is so awkward. So I give credit to the people behind, like in front of the camera, tenfold, because it does get so awkward if it's uncomfortable. Like if you don't know how to be comfortable in your own skin without seeing yourself, you know, I think that's like the most, I guess, uncomfortable thing, is like you are just trusting the other part, like on the other side, to capture your best angles, you know? So I guess from my side as a videographer, there's 2 things. Like, number one, I make sure that they're really confident in what they're going to say. Like if there's a script or something, I always get a teleprompter, so they never have to like memorize anything. It's always, they're just looking at the camera and reading. So that's more of their focus, of like trying to articulate the words. So being prepared in that sense of what you're going to say, and like practicing that before we actually shoot. And then second fold is just getting to know them. Like if I'm going to shoot with someone that I've never shot with before, I'd love them to ask me questions or like have a real conversation and say like, yeah, I can admit I'm a little nervous in front of the camera too. So don't stress out that this is new or like you're different than anyone else. Like everyone gets nervous in front of the camera. So it's very normal. But I think on the other side, on the other side, if you're in front of the camera, making sure you're prepped is the best thing you can do. Standing in front of the mirror, practicing your poses, and then like, this sounds like it's such a silly trick, but like if you're practicing a pose, I would always like in a mirror, look at yourself, whatever pose you're about to do, and then close your eyes or like turn away from the mirror and pose the exact same way. And then just check, okay, this is how I feel when I'm posing this way, so that you know how you're supposed to feel when you're posing in front of a camera without the mirror there, if that makes sense. So those are my tips.
It does make sense. And another tip for anybody, sometimes provide a little bit of alcohol. That's has worked for us a little bit in the past too. But yeah, you know what? It's unfortunate because people are, so often we're just saying, just the way you're speaking to me right now, I just want you to do the same thing. But as soon as you pull that camera up, it's a whole different ball game. And, it can be hard for some people. So I think to your point, like practice at home, do what you need to do, come prepared. And then I think just get started. Like for me, a couple years ago, I was nervous just to do a podcast that just was an audio recording. There was no video, and I was nervous to do that. I mean, just the thought of like putting my voice on tape was nerve wracking. I'm also from a generation where like, we didn't have cameras on us all the time in our pockets and taking selfies. You only took a photo when it was like a big monumental moment. And so that's hard for a lot of people to get around because we have this thing in our head where it's like, is this wrong to do? Or is this like an ego play? Like not everything's about the camera. And I think people got to get with the times, right? People want to see what other people are up to. I mean, when you picture yourself at home and you're sitting on the couch, you might have the TV on, but mostly what you're doing is scrolling through your phone. So you got to assume that every other person is doing that too. And if you want to connect with people, you're going to have to connect with where people are, which is on their phones. And you're going to have to find some creative ways to create content. And speaking of creative ways to create content, where do you gain your inspiration from? Like when you're walking through the city, for example, are you always kind of on the lookout for the next best area or something that could be a unique shot? Do you feel like, someone has to come up with like a perfect set in order to shoot something, or do you shoot from the home? What's sort of your advice on that?
When it comes to locations, I'm always on the lookout. Like if I'm just walking around, for sure I have that kind of eye, and I'll just say like, oh, that's like a really good location. And what I'll do is I'll use like Google Maps and just like save whatever spot. I have like a list of, like cool film locations that I've just accumulated over the years. But I think like majority of my inspiration, probably two ways. It comes from just consuming like a bunch of media all the time and like not having the pressure to always have like a reference video right away. I always take like time to go through, like Vimeo is great, YouTube is great, and Instagram. Those are the three that I always have a bunch of things saved just over the years. Like if I see something that's cool, I'll save it into like a specific category if it's like a music video or a commercial. And then when someone comes to me with an idea, usually it's like the client side that comes to me and says like, hey, I want to do something like this. And then I'll go back to a bunch of my like saved lists and just skim through and say, oh yeah, this is a little similar to your vibe and not. So it's more about like looking at, what's already been done and seeing how it can fit with their vision. And also I find a lot of my inspiration comes from going on walks and just like not doing anything. Like whenever my mind is really quiet, like there's a lot of times where you'll go on a walk and you'll listen to music or you'll listen to a podcast. Like we're always multitasking and we never get bored. And like boredom to me is when the best creative ideas come because you're just open. Like you're listening to your own thoughts. And for whatever reason, like there's little things or little, I guess, like ideas that I get as I do these like quiet walks. And that's like the best thing I can recommend is try to get bored and you'll find something that you'll lean into.
It's funny you saying that. I'm getting a little anxious here. I'm like, boredom. Like, we're just so used to having something on us all the time. I mean, Rarely are people walking without something in their ears or on the phone or watching a video even. I mean, it's so rare to see anymore. And it's funny. What do you do in terms of, I'm thinking back a couple years ago, we did a fireside chat, so to speak, with a number of agents. And we just went into the courtyard here where I work. There's some nice green space, and we kind of set up a picnic, and we were doing a shoot outside because, I mean, sometimes like it can only be so interesting having the same background all the time, right? So we were like, let's change it up. But then, of course, the security guards came and they like shut that down so fast. How do you get around that? Or are you like always getting permits? And
honestly, we never really, like, a lot of my shoots are either like within a studio. Sometimes, like when it is outside, I don't have a lot of gear on me, and it's usually like me and maybe 2 or 3 other people. So it's like less attention that's being drawn is the best way to do it. And I mean, because I'm still young, most of the time I just say like, oh, it's for a school project. Like it's just, or it's like, it's just for fun. Like there's nothing commercial going on. I don't know if I'm even allowed to say that out loud, but I don't think there's definitely ways around it, because at the end of the day, it's not that serious most of the time. Like if you're shooting on like in a national park or something that's like significant, it's like, okay, yeah, you definitely need a permit for those kind of things. But if it's like, I don't know, on like in a park that's not, I don't know, provincially owned, like it's, I guess like the less gear, the better.
Kind of thing, right? Yeah.
Yeah. Like it's just about, I guess, confidence and doing it really quickly. Those are the two things.
I agree. Get in, get out, and you know, don't ask for permission. Just get started
and forgiveness.
Ask for forgiveness. Exactly. It's funny you brought up gear, and that brought to my mind. We have a new videographer on our team. He likes making short documentaries, and he's 21 years old, and he just recently purchased a $4,000 lens, which for any 21-year-old is quite expensive. And we were like, wow, that's, you know, a big purchase given all of the other equipment that you already have. And he said, you know, I really want to invest back in my business. Like, this is what I'm passionate about. This is what I want to do. And, you know, in my feeling, like I would have seen 21-year-olds kind of go and blow it on new shoes or new clothes or something else like that. What's kind of like your big investment that you've made back into your business?
So just recently I purchased DaVinci Resolve, which is like a coloring program. So I'm trying to, I guess, like branch off into that other very small puzzle piece that is part of huge crews and huge productions where you'll have someone that just colors the film. So that's like one thing that I guess I invested in recently. But my mentality, it's funny that you bring up, you know, this kid who just purchased like something very expensive, especially if it's a lens. My perspective is, if like most of my bigger purchases, I'd say, are like software. So like my laptop needs to be super fast and needs to be like top grade, and I'll spend money on that for sure. The things that I won't exactly spend money on are things like camera bodies and lenses, because you can rent those. And I've only really been doing this for 3 years. So there's definitely tons of opinions where like it's better to own it. And then if you own it, you can then rent it out. There's tons of ways around that. But for myself, over the past 3 years, I've upgraded my camera body every single year. And so it doesn't make sense for me to keep purchasing. Like every year the camera body is going to get more expensive because I've pushed the camera to its limit and I can't produce what I want to produce with it. So then I have to upgrade. So right now I am renting, and it's the best thing because I don't have to drop capital on like a $5,000, $6,000 setup where I know how to use this camera, but I'm only paying a very small amount. And at the end of the day, hoping that whatever package that this client purchases, it comes with this rental price. So I'm still coming home with like my personal rate, and the rental price is like separate. So I personally, like, I recommend that for anyone who is making like a big investment. Rent it out first. If you find that you're using it consistently and you're like, okay, it's annoying to go back and forth from this rental house, then maybe think about purchasing it. But if you have 1 to 2 shoots a week like I do, you could somewhat finesse this rental price, because I'm just going to keep outgrowing there's so much new equipment that comes out every single year. You upgrade. We're like, next year we'll probably be looking at 8K instead of 4K or 10. Like, nobody uses 1080p footage anymore, and it's like, it's only been a couple years that's completely outdated.
The technology is going so fast. I'm kind of laughing to myself because I'm very shocked by your answer, Nicole. So I appreciate that tip. I didn't expect that at all, but it kind of makes sense in theory. Of course, I don't really understand the logistics of like the actual camera, but it does make a lot of sense because of how fast technology is moving. In terms of other videographers who might be listening to this and saying like, damn, I want to get into that space, because I do think there's a unique opportunity for people who help people produce content, whether it be animators or videographers like yourself. Like, they're going to be more and more high demand. What would you say is your advice to those people who are like, I don't even know where to start. I have a kinesiology degree. What do I even do?
Yeah. So I guess everyone's path is different, right? My path just happened to be that I was into fitness, and those two things merged, like fitness and film. So if you are just starting, I would take a really good look at yourself in the mirror and say, like, what do I want to film? And like, is that in alignment with my life? Like, do you really like sport? And like, have you been playing sport your whole life? Are you really into fitness? Go to a gym, film that kind of stuff. And like the practice of marrying those two ideas will help you a lot in like whichever way you're gonna go, because there's so many things you could film. You could film landscape, you could film restaurants, you could film commercials, music videos. There's like so many things. So it's like, whatever is going to cause you less friction to shoot, whatever is like fully in alignment with what you want to do, like, don't ask any questions, just do it. Like, not sponsored by Nike, but seriously, just go out and just do the thing that you want to do, like in terms of what niche or what exactly you're capturing. And with that being said, like, once you get out there, I'm a big believer in like really asking and you shall receive. Like, keep putting the word out there that like, hey, I really want to get started into video. Hey, I want to get started into video. And every time that you tell your friend, your family, like anyone in your social circle, that word will just keep spreading and help will be on the way faster than you know it. Like, there's so many people out there that are willing to help. And especially because I got so much help when I started, it's like, if anyone needs help, like, I'm here to answer any questions. Just like this podcast, like, I'm so willing to just say, like, let's talk about it, because there's been a lot of people above me that have helped. So it's like passing it along and making sure the word is out there, like, hey, I really want to get into this. What should I do? How do I get started? There's so many people that will say, like, that will just immediately help you, or say, like, I can't help you, but I know someone that will, and that connection will just spiral and domino into something a lot bigger.
It's so funny that you said, getting rid of the friction, because it says right behind me here on our wall, removing friction. That's a definitely.
Oh, that's so funny.
Yeah, that's definitely something we believe in here at the company I work with, and for FTGU Media as well. Because, if you can remove friction in other people's lives, that usually in most cases comes back tenfold, right? Like, if you just put out good vibes, put out positivity, that's going to come back one way or another. And I so appreciate you taking the time to join us today. I just had one last question for you. So if I'm on our team, we have about 10 people within our core. That includes like people who are actually on our administration side as well as the media side. And it's always been insane how we found everybody. You kind of said, like, just put it out there, ask around. And that's always how people have kind of come to us. Like, we always attract really good people. Mm-hmm. At the same time, when we're looking for someone really specific, we're like, where are we going to find this particular, like a filmmaker or something like that? Actually, how we found you was just, I looked up Toronto videographer, for example, and how we found some other people on our team. We just kind of look on Instagram and see what comes up. At the same time, we've gone to schools in the area and put postings for jobs for people who are in the media space at schools, because they might need internships or they're looking for full-time work after everything's done. what would be your advice to finding someone like yourself or someone who's a videographer, a talented videographer? Where should someone look for these types of people?
Exactly what you did. Exactly what you did. Search on social media. That's like, I swear 95% of the people I come in contact with are because of social media. Like it's so crazy. And once you, like I said, maybe like a big mix of both, like word of mouth, keep putting it out there that like, hey, I want to get into this. Someone's going to say, hey, I know this person. You'll probably get their Instagram likely, and you'll look at their portfolio and say, oh, wow, they're really cool or whatever. It aligns with me. Send them a message. Like, I don't think I've like, cold called or DM'd too many people, but when I do, it's very like organic, and I don't like asking things right away. Like I'll just keep engaging. Like I don't know if it's Gary Vaynerchuk that does this, or there's probably another media company out there that says like the 10-cent rule, where like you just keep providing like small little reminders of like value over time, and they'll recognize like, oh, like you actually do mess with my stuff. Like you like my stuff. Like how can I help you, or vice versa? And you just get a conversation going there. So yeah, definitely Instagram, like just searching like what you did, and then word of mouth. Those are the two things.
Okay, well, we're on the right track, and look at that. The power of social media wins again.
Yes,
Nicole,
always will.
It always will. It always will. Thank you so much for your time today. I really appreciate it, and I feel like you're just on such an incredible path and journey, and I really wish you all the best, and I look forward to seeing all the killer stuff that you're going to do in your future, which I'm very confident you will. So thank you again.
Thank you so much for all those kind words. Yeah, I'm excited for this podcast. I know you guys have been doing it for a while, so it's exciting to be a part of it. And yeah, hopefully whoever this reaches, like just, I guess one last word of advice is just to go do it. Like whatever that voice inside your head is telling you to do, just go for it. Because like we talked about at the very beginning, pivoting and having a plan, sometimes it works, but you might as well just go for it. Life is too short. So
I love it. We'll leave it at that. For all of our other viewers and listeners, if you liked what you heard today, leave a comment, let us know, give us a thumbs up, thumbs down, subscribe, like us wherever you're tuning in from, and we'll catch you next time. Take care.
Awesome. Thank you.